Hi, I'm Tom Penskowski, and this is my informational speech for speech class. And we have 8 adults with us today. Okay, here we go. Hi, my name is Tom Penskowski, and I'm wondering if any of you would like to know how to get free plants, or if any of you are interested in free plants. I'm here today to give you some information on how to do this. We're here today to talk about plant propagation. Plant propagation, it's an easy and an inexpensive way to acquire new plants, whether they're for your own personal to enjoy or to give to friends, relatives, neighbors. It's an easy and fun hobby. There are several different ways to propagate plants. I'm going to talk about the most common ways today, 4 in particular when we get to that point. There are some plants are easier to propagate than other plants. It's one of the things you have to do is to do maybe a little bit of research. Some plants cannot be propagated by the means that I'm talking about, but I'm going to speak on the 4 major ways, the easiest ways, the most common ways to propagate plants. So you have to do a little bit of research and make sure that the plant that you want to propagate can be done with one of these techniques. Small scale propagation is very easy and inexpensive. It requires a little bit of know-how, a little bit of time, very little in the way of money, some growing medium pots possibly. And what are the numerous benefits of propagating? Why would you want to propagate plants? Well, obviously the low cost. It costs next to nothing to propagate certain house plants and even perennials that we use outside, and even some plants like trees. They can be very low cost, and you also get the plant that you want. Anybody that's ever planted a seed, sometimes that seed does not end up being the plant that you thought you were going to get. Where if I'm actually looking at a plant similar to this, I can take stem tip cuttings and root them and know exactly what plant I'm going to get with no surprises. Rejuvenating existing plants is another benefit. Again, if we take a plant that's getting a little worn, a little haggard, a little bit old, by propagating new plants off of the mother plant, I can continue on with that plant while the older plant possibly has seen better days and won't be with us much longer. So it's taking generation cuttings off a plant similar to this. You can keep the plant growing for many years to come. The 4 main ways to propagate a plant that I'll talk about today. The number 1 and easiest way for most house plants is what I just talked about, was the stem tip cuttings, where a good sharp cut with a knife or a scissors. We use rooting hormone to propagate by dusting the tip cutting and placing it in the medium. You'll get it to root much faster. Certain plants cannot be done this way, and that's why we have different methods, but this is by far and away the most popular way. It is with stem tip cuttings. As you can see, some of the plants behind me will work, some will not. And that's why it brings me to the second way to propagate plants, and that is to take a root division or a plant division. If I have a big enough house plant and I want to make 2 or 3 plants out of it, it's easy enough to take it out of the pot, and using a sharp shovel, a knife, a saw, you can literally cut the root ball and the plant into 3 or 4 different pieces, possibly more, and pot them up. And automatically you've gone from having 1 plant to having, who knows, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different plants. A third way I'd like to, or a method of propagation I'd like to touch on, is leaf cuttings. There are a couple of popular house plants that are propagated this way. One is the begonia, and what happens is we'll take an entire leaf, we'll cut some notches in it, make contact with the soil, put a weight on it, and it'll eventually root. That's a real popular way to do begonias. Another plant that's done that way, I think we've all seen before, African violets that are produced by leaf cuttings. And the 4th one I'd like to touch on isn't quite as popular, but it's called layering. And that's especially popular in the berry family, like raspberries, where you'll take a cane, lay it over, bury it with soil, and put a weight on it, and wait for it to root. And once it roots, then you can cut it away from the mother plant and you have a second plant. Another popular plant to do that method with is spider plants. I think we all know what spider plants are. House plant, where the babies come off. You lay that in the soil. Once it roots in that pot, then you're free to cut it off the mother plant. So to summarize, some of the benefits of propagation, they're numerous. Again, low cost, ease. We've all been to the store and saw house plants for sale for $10. You can make one literally for pennies on the dollar to do it yourself. The various techniques are numerous. I highly suggest doing a little research, making sure you know if the plant you're working with, what's the best way to propagate that particular plant before you try it. The cost outlay is very minimal. You can, as long as you have a little time and the space, you can see around me here that we've propagated a lot of plants over the course of the years. In closing, the plant propagation, it's an easy way to acquire new plants. There's nothing quite like making your own plants. It's pretty rewarding and you can save a lot of money. And propagating is an easy way to share plants with friends, neighbors, like some of the people sitting here today. We've shared plants with them in the past. They're all neighbors. They came over to listen to the speech today. So I'd like to thank you for listening to my speech and see you next time.